Welcome to Bridging the Gap. I'm your host, Ty Johnson, and we have a very special guest today with us, Pastor Herbert Luss II, my friend and buddy, pastor of the Greater Exodus Baptist Church. Pastor Luss, welcome to the program today.
Thank you, Todd.
Let's just jump into our audience, for our viewing audience who may not know your background, how you, before you got into the ministry, could you kind of share with us your journey?
Well, I got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1976 and played pro football for the Eagles under Dick Vermeil, and told them I'd played 3 years and quit and go into ministry. I played 3 years and quit and got called to a church in Philadelphia and fell in love with the challenges of the city, and I've been here ever since. My hometown is in California, Monterey Peninsula.
And you come from a long line of, your father was a pastor, is that correct?
My father pastors in California and in Memphis, Tennessee, so yeah, we go back.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, for our viewing guests, I mean, most of the people in Philadelphia know of your work and some of the things you've done, but just if you could share in a capsule before we go into your work overseas in the motherland, could you share with us some of the things you do here in Philadelphia at the Greater Exodus Church?
Well, most of the things that I do is domestic. My Africa work is in addition to that. But the thing that's closest on my heart, we have a welfare to work program. We train about 4,000 welfare recipients a year in our People for People nonprofit. We also have a charter school with 550 children in it, K through 8, and we're beginning in high school. We have early education as well. We also have prison reentry ministries for those who have been incarcerated, coming back into the world. We socialize them back into the world, jobs, and connect them with their families, Project Dad. We just built in partnership with Project Home, 55 one-bedroom apartments for the homeless.
Wow.
And we're really excited about that. Sister Mary was the anchor to that, but it was a wonderful partnership that we're going to have open house pretty soon on that one. But the thing that's closest to my heart right now is my work with pro-life. We have a crisis pregnancy center, and we're saving lives. And I got to tell you, there's nothing that gives me more joy than to see a man and a woman come into our crisis pregnancy center with the idea of aborting their child. And then all of a sudden, they see the ultrasound, they see the baby, they know that in 21 days, the baby has a heartbeat, and they begin to hear that heartbeat. They change their mind. 85% of all the people who are abortion-minded, when they see that ultrasound and hear that heartbeat, they say, oh no.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's the most exciting thing I'm doing right now.
Saving lives. Now, your work, in addition to what you do at Greater Exodus, we would be here all day talking about your work there, but I am also interested in the lives that you have affected over in Africa. Could you share, we'll get more detail later in the show, but could you just give us an overview of the type of work that you do in Africa?
Well, basically, we take on projects in Africa. When I travel to Africa, and I travel pretty much all over Africa, Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, Kingdom of Swaziland, and I can go on and on, Ethiopia. But we're looking for specific projects in villages. Typically, you're going to dig a well, fresh water, or you're going to educate kids by getting them in school. You're going to support the children of AIDS victims. And those are the kinds of things that we do primarily. And basically, it's I find the projects, I come back home, and I convene a few people who I think are interested in helping to develop the project. the resources go directly to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because when I think of, I've never been to Africa, but when I think of the number of times that you go there during the course of just a year, it's amazing that you find the time and energy to not only do the work that you do here in Philadelphia, which is very well known and documented, but the work that you do over in Africa. You're sort of like an unsung hero. Because I've heard of some of the things that you've done over in Africa, and I'm amazed by it. Could you share with us perhaps like your Tanzania experience? What was that like the first time going to Tanzania?
Oh, my first time, I don't recall, I've been there so many times now, but I can tell you my first time going on the continent of Africa. It was an experience like, and by the way, it's interesting that my white brothers have the same experience. You know, most archaeologists and anthropologists believe that all life began on that continent. And I don't care who you are, when you get there, you feel like you've come home. And I just kind of put my hands down on the ground and touched the dirt of the motherland.
Wow.
But it's not just the motherland of African Americans, it's the cradle of humanity.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that, I guess that feeling of the traveling, you have to get a certain amount, because people may not know what goes on behind the scenes in order for one to travel to Africa. Do you have to get a certain amount of vaccines? The flight time, it's not an hour and a half, but we're talking in some parts of Africa, you may have a 24, 30-hour flight. So what is that like to kind of endure? Because that to me would be a hardship to endure that long of a flight. I mean, I complain about a flight that's an hour or an hour and a half. I can't imagine what it would be like to travel for 18 to 20 hours up in the air.
Well, you remember I told you earlier some of the things that I do with People for People, and some of the things I do with the church, and with some things I do in terms of my crisis pregnancy center. Those things that we do is very time consuming. It does not give me quiet time.
Right.
You know, when you're going from one program to the next and helping this person, helping that person, when do you get away? When do you have that time when you can reflect? I got to tell you, I can't wait to get on that plane sometimes, because when I get on the plane,
Right.
I can begin to work on my book. I can read whatever I want to read. I have my own captive audience for 18, 19 hours, and it's relaxing to me.
Now, for those who are our viewing audience who perhaps have never traveled to Africa, some people may have misnomers or have been miseducated about what Africa looks like, because those who haven't had a chance to travel there, perhaps they may have, like myself, may have a skewed view of exactly how the land looks. You think of the movies where you see the jungles and so forth, but much of Africa is not like that. Is that correct?
Much of Africa is, I mean, there are parts of Africa where you think you're in America.
Wow.
And, you know, you go into Joburg, for instance, one good example. In South Africa, I mean, you got skyscrapers, you got freeways, you got everything that you could experience here in this country.
McDonald's, and because I understand that's popular over in Africa. So, but the work that you do in Africa, the countries that you go to, and the people that you help, who you may need to dig a well, or they may not have a hospital, or they may not have proper health care. Those remote places in Africa, are they? What would somebody like me, who's green, so to speak, what would I expect to see when I go there?
Well, make no mistake about it, even though I said that Joburg and other large cities are like coming to America, in the rule is the rule. I mean, there are wild animals. In Africa, certain places, at night you will hear sounds that you don't hear in this country.
Okay.
That's when you know that
Right.
you're in Africa,
Right.
when you start hearing those sounds that you've never heard before.
Wow.
And you know, I was raised in Memphis, Tennessee before I went to California. And I know what the country's like, and I know those sounds in the country. Trust me. When you go to Africa, you know that you're in a distant continent.
Wow, that must be amazing. So when you come back and the stories that you have to share, some of the people that you've helped, some of the people that you've given some hope to over in Africa, I guess you could share some stories with our audience that not only have you changed their life, but I would assume that there have been some life-changing experiences that you have gone through helping
No
people.
question about it.
So
No question about it.
could you share maybe one personal story with us, or something that you did, or something that happened that kind of made you say to yourself, "Wow, this is really what helping people is all about"? I mean, is there a child who came up and gave you a hug and said thank you that kind of reminded you of why you were there?
Oh, you know, it takes very little in terms of our resources to make a great impact in Africa. It just takes, 1,000 here, 5,000 here, 10,000 here will make all the difference in the world. And so they're very grateful for any support that they receive.
Right.
And so, yeah, I can tell you a few stories.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never been to Africa, but when I talk to people like yourself who do go to Africa quite frequently and who are like what I would call frontline soldiers, it kind of inspires me to say, you know what, I'm going to go to Africa one day, because Pastor Lust talks about it in such glowing terms that I feel almost like I'm missing something by not going to Africa. And perhaps somebody in our viewing audience might be sitting there saying, I've never gone to Africa, but I would like to go there. And maybe I'd like to go on a missionary journey, or maybe I'd like to go there and help build a hospital or a school or what have you. What would you suggest, or is there a number they can call? Or is
Yeah,
it,
I would suggest if there's someone in your listening audience that would like to travel to Africa, should go with me on one of my trips. We are politically connected to the places we go as well. We don't just go simply as tourists, but I have relationships with the government officials there as well, and they like to see us come. So they can call the People for People number. That number is 215-235-2340.
okay, y'all got that? 235-2430.
Not quite.
Okay. I think
We'll give it to them again.
Oh, we'll give it to you. Yeah, we'll come back. So after this break, we'll come right back. Don't you leave. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Really? Yeah, I'm running late. I'll be right there. What? Hello? Oh, really? 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 Oh, finally.
Hey, fellow TV viewers. Are you bored? Are you tired of the same old shows? Having thousands of channels to watch, but there's nothing there? Tired of sitting by yourself on your old mama's striped couch? Sitting in your room by yourself, watching someone who resembles your grandfather? Yeah, I know. I used to be just like you. By now, all hope is lost. You're flipping through channels, wondering what to watch. Boring, 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 boring. Wait, what's this? LaSalle TV. It's new, it's bold, it's great. It's not your ordinary TV.
Welcome back to Bridging the Gap, and our guest is none other than Pastor Herb Lust, pastor of the Greater Exodus Baptist Church. Pastor Lust, before we went to break, you were going to share some stories with us. You gave out the phone number. I was told that the website came up so they can get in touch with you through getting in touch with you online. But could you share maybe a few stories of some of the experiences that you've had in Africa?
Well, I think the first story that I'd really have to share would be one that would probably startle a lot of people in your audience. That is that as an African-American man, the way I got involved in Africa was not through another African-American or an African who invited me. It was by the last president of the United States of America, George W. Bush. And George W. Bush, a lot of people don't know this, but out of all the presidents in the history of America, he has given more resources to Africa than any of them. Topped almost, I think it was like $17 billion under his administration.
Wow.
I was an advisor to him on faith-based initiatives and sub-Saharan Africa AIDS. And during that time, his passion for Africa was so different that it really piqued my interest. And I began to find out more about Africa. And then I got a chance to represent our country and represent our president at a couple of meetings in Africa. But it was there and in my interacting with him that Africa became a special place in my heart. And it was amazing how that happened, and it's been like that ever since. So that's the first story I want to tell you. Just that it was through a president.
Wow.
It was through our president that got me involved, and when I began to see what was going on, it was very clear that there was a tidal wave of death that was taking place on the continent. Tidal wave of death. People were dying as fast as you could pop your finger. I remember going into one compound, and there were two men sitting there. When I came out, I was in the compound for maybe an hour. I came back, one of those men was dead.
Wow.
People dying like this, AIDS. And the intervention of the United States of America during that time, during the AIDS crisis, was pivotal to everything on that continent. And you'd be surprised when you go to Africa how many Africans still have a profound respect for our country because of George W. Bush.
Amazing. Amazing. So it was through our president that you first got your interest piqued on the continent of Africa, and then subsequently you got involved and have been helping ever since. Now, could you give us maybe share a story with us about your interaction with some of the Native Africans that you had an opportunity to meet while you were there?
Yeah, one, I guess maybe this is a story that I could say for all of them, really. They were all very much the same way, my interaction with them. These were happy people. They were not sad. They had very little, and they have very little. But what was always amazing to me is for the little that they had, why they were so happy. And there's one lady in particular who really had a tough life, but she always had this smile, and I pulled her aside and I said, "Hey, listen, could you help me out? I just need to know, why is it that you can be so happy in this situation,
right,
and the challenges that you have from day to day?" And she smiled and she says, "I'm not happy. I have joy."
Wow.
And she says, "There's a difference between being happy and having joy. When you're happy, it's based upon happenstance.
Right.
It's based upon the things that are going on around you. It is your external environment."
Right.
She says, "But this joy that I have is internal. It's not based upon anything that's going on around me."
That's one.
And she went on to say that joy was the joy of Jesus.
All right.
And so Africa is one of the places where the church is growing rapidly. probably the second fastest in the world, next to China, and Jesus is making an impact on that country,
Now,
on the continent.
when you go to Africa, I know people think of Africa as one big country. Actually, there are over 500 countries on the continent of Africa. Name any one of them that you've been to. I'm sure
They're different.
Right, they're all different.
The
and
different
unique.
typology is different. The terrain is different. The trees are different. You know, the ground is different in all these countries. It's amazing how different they are.
Because I would assume that when you go to Africa and you say you have to dig a well for some impoverished village, there has to be somebody involved in that process that knows about digging wells and has tested the ground and the water and the terrain and so forth.
Yeah, there are companies there, and what you do is you contract the company to dig the well. But one of the things that you have to do also is you have to train the villagers as to how to fix it when it breaks, and then it becomes a resource for them as well, where other villages will come and get water.
Right.
So you teach them how to make it. You become almost entrepreneurial about the well that you have in your own village.
Right.
The other thing we've done there, I think, is that really amazes me, is the hammer mills.
Hammer mills.
Yeah, where you grain the crops into flour and
Wow.
mace,
Okay.
all those things that they eat. And we built a couple of those as well, and you can see the product. The one we did in Zambia.
Zambia.
The one we did in Zambia, a year later I came back and I saw flatbed trucks pulling up, you know, carrying this in other parts and other
Right.
villages. I mean, it's very productive. The village is making money. You see people in their bicycles with a pack of mace or a pack of flour going home. Just exciting to see the life that is ignited in the village when you do these small things.
So a lot of the things that we as Americans may take for granted, running water and having running water, some of those basic products you talked about, flour, grain, and so forth, we don't even think about. We just go to the supermarket and buy it. But I guess they are a lot more appreciative because from what you're stating, they actually have a hands-on approach to the productivity of their village.
Yeah, I'll put it to you this way. The average African, and we're talking about multiple countries, are earning $1 a day.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you think about how you live off $1 a day, and it's, for many of them, it is surviving from one day to the next. Yeah.
So it's like it literally is one day at a time. Well, I gotta ask you something. I'm gonna go off the beaten path here. Some of our viewers may not know your work here domestically, but I understand that you still have quite some connection with the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to share with us what you do for them and what capacity?
Well, you know, I bleed green. If anybody that don't know that, you know, I played under Dick Vermeil, but I'm now the Eagles chaplain. I've served them as their chaplain, I think, for about 10 years now. And so I do all their Bible studies, all their prayer services, and counseling of the players and the coaches. And,
That must be exciting.
it keeps me close to the things that I used to do.
Right.
You see.
That's good to know. Because one day I'm going to call you up and say, man, take me to a game, you know.
Oh, that's easy,
yeah.
Todd, that's easy. Whenever you want to go to a football game,
I'll call you.
you'll be my guest.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I diverted for just a moment because I'm an Eagles fan too. If you cut me, I bleed the same color as my shirt.
I
green.
see, you got a green
So this
shirt
is happy belated St. Patrick's Day for. But I'm enamored with the fact that someone like yourself is able to balance the time between doing what you do domestically and doing what you do in a foreign country, that you seem to have that balance. Because some people say, oh, we'll just concentrate on home. And then you have other people say, oh, no, just go overseas and do what you can for others. But you seem to have a real balance of your priorities in terms of the help that you provide. Where did that come from? I mean, how did you arrive at that pivotal point in your life where you're able to do what you do in Africa and do what you do here in Philadelphia and abroad?
Good question. I never do anything myself. Never. These hands can only carry what these hands can carry. Great staff, great people. I'm always finding people who have like mind, like spirits. And so my staff, if I'm in Africa, they do the work better than I do. So the key is building capacity. And again, the more capacity you have, the more you can do.
Wow.
The less capacity you have, the less you can do. So people who want to do it all by themselves, they should know that at some point you'll hit that invisible ceiling where you can't do but a few things.
Right. That's wonderful to know, because I like I said, I've always wanted you to appear on the show and to share your story of what you do with the viewing audience, because the work that you do in Africa and the work that you do here in Philadelphia, I just think is truly amazing, and the lives that you save and are saving, that's a testimony to the work that you do. Again, our guest has been Pastor Herb Lusk, pastor of the Greater Exodus Baptist Church. You can check him out on the Sunday morning. He's right there at Broad and Fairmount. And if you want to go to Africa and learn more about what's going on in Africa, you can get in touch with him. Again, I'm Todd Johnson, your host. When one's on the right, another's on the left. When we reach towards the middle, we begin to bridge the gap. Until next time, love everybody and be nice to somebody. Bye for now. Okay.